Hi there, welcome into the CHGO Sky Show. We have so much to get to today. We are under 10 days from the start of the regular season for the WNBA. Sky are 2-0 in the preseason. Will they start the regular season just as strong? We're going to discuss right after this. Is up, Skytown. We are back with another CHGO Sky Show. Preseason basketball has started. We are getting ready for the regular season. Let's introduce the crew. I have Steven, number 2, on the ones and twos over here. Steven, number 1, joining us from Phoenix. Steven Garner, how's it going out there?
My mic was off. I'm doing great. I'm on a little bit of a high, honestly. The CHGO Sky have looked very sharp, albeit preseason and albeit teams that are withered in terms of the status of their full rotation being available. The Sky have no control over that. All they have is control over how sharp they are with their process on both sides of the court. And needless to say, they've been very impressive on both ends. But how about you? How you doing?
I'm good. I agree. Impressive on both ends for sure. I'm excited to dive into what they've been doing and what we can see from them this season. First and foremost, though, I think we have a Met Gala look to talk about. Angel Reese, for the second straight year going, she was on the board this year, putting together a look that I think was better than last season, but we just got to shout it out. I mean, this is incredible. She is obviously everywhere still, on the cover of magazines, at the Met Gala, in commercials. This is an incredible look for her. Steven, how do you compare this to last year's look?
I would rather not compare, just because when the bar for greatness is so high, most people can't reach that. She's a mogul, she's an icon, and she came back and had the game that she had yesterday, the day after going to Met Gala, while also doing so on her birthday. So although she always speaks to everybody having the same 24 hours, it seems like she squeezes a little bit more out of hers than most people can even fathom. And to be able to, like I said, wear those hats and still not allow for slippage on the business side, on the basketball side of things, not unlike she did last season as well, mind you, just speaks to the greatness that is Angel Reese. She's one of one.
Yeah, definitely an insane 24 hours, like you mentioned. She went from the Met Gala back to Chicago for a preseason game on her birthday, and put out some good numbers in that game as well. Since we're talking preseason, let's dive right into it. 2-0 so far in the preseason for the Sky. How much weight do you put on preseason games?
So it's much less about the record, and it's much more about looking at the sharpness in chemistry, looking at the sharpness with game plans, seeing what a coach might be wanting to do in terms of style of play, what the lineups look like in terms of the rotation, what players fit better with others, things like that. So that's the lens that I'm looking at it through, and that's why I said they've been impressive. It's independent of the literal record or the production within that. Just seeing how sustainable are the things that we're seeing from them. And there's nothing I've seen in these first 2 games, again, regardless of opponent and the status of their opponents, that I feel like is something that's not sustainable for them. In fact, I think they still have multiple levels up that they can uptick to just over time and getting these game reps. But I'm curious about you. What did you think about everything that we've seen so far through 2 preseason games?
Yeah, I don't put a ton of weight in preseason, and I agree. I think it's more about seeing what the coach is doing, seeing the scheming, seeing the lineups that he's putting out there. Playing time a little bit, I put a little bit of weight on that, especially when you're looking at first players off the bench and, just lineups and schemes and things like that. I have really liked the lineups and the stacking that Tyler Marsh has put out there. I've really liked the offensive scheme that we've seen. A few little hiccups. We saw a lot of turnovers from Courtney Vandersloot last game. Again, like it's preseason. I don't know if that's something that's going to continue, but I'm not putting a ton of weight on like individual player performances. For me, it's more about what Tyler Marsh is doing and how these lineups fit together. And I think in that respect, I'm feeling good about it. So, speaking of that lineup, we've seen Courtney Vandersloot, Ariel Atkins, Kia Nurse, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, the starting five for those 2 preseason games. Have you liked the lineup? What do you think is working? What do you think is not working for that starting lineup?
Yeah, I like the lineup a ton. When we were talking about lineups, that's the one that I said that I would personally start if I was Tyler Marsh. And my reason is behind that was on the offensive end, those two have an IQ that can go in tandem with Courtney Vandersloot to put Angel and Camila in the best possible positions to be successful, whether that be with them literally passing the ball to either of those two, whether that be them playing pick and roll with those two, whether that be them spacing around those two and giving them as much space to operate and be the advantages that they are once they get below the free throw line, or even with cutting to remove, help, and give them space and things like that. So there's a shared IQ dynamic that comes from having such high IQ and experienced finals level veterans around those two that I feel like is going to create a synergy that only uplifts the production of their offense, especially in the half court. And we've seen that play out a ton through these first 2 preseason games. And then on the defensive end of the court, with Ariel and Kia, those two are just so much fun. Again, it's the shared IQ. They're both very physical. They're both very involved in the game, even when they're off the ball. High-level communicators. They're early with their help, and they're active with their hands. And I feel like we've already seen a few scenarios where those two are defending and someone might get beat on the perimeter, but because the other is nearby, and I mentioned them always being early with their help, they're able to execute these switches. They're called peel switches. And where usually if someone gets blown by it, it leads to a paint touch or an attempt at the basket, or it gets the defense in rotation. Because those two are on the same schedule, they're sharing an IQ. One is anticipating some slippage on the ball. They're able to take over for that person on ball, and then they switch on the fly. It keeps the defensive shell intact, keeps the offense without creating an advantage. And honestly, when they do so even better than normal, it speeds up the read of whoever it is that has the ball and usually leads to a turnover. So those little things, again, just helping put Angel and Camila in better positions is why I felt like those two should be starting. And we've seen that come to fruition so far.
Yeah, and I think we talked before preseason started about how Kia Nurse and Ariel Atkins could kind of insulate Courtney Vandersloot on defense as well. Not the strongest defender in the world, and how they could kind of help her out. And you saw her with like 4 steals in, a preseason game, which is huge, and you love to see that. So it seems like really good team defensive effort, like not only insulating Courtney, but also just putting her in a really good position to make steals, to get points off of turnovers. I know that's something Angel mentioned in post-game media availability as well last night. Just those points off turnovers and how important those were. I think that was you that asked her about points off turnovers, correct?
Yeah, that was following their game against Brazil, the Brazilian national team, where they had 32 points off turnovers. And I think that's a good time to kind of transition to that one, and then we can kind of pick it up coming out of it.
Yeah, so let's take a listen to Angel Reese here after their preseason game against the Brazilian national team, talking about points off turnovers.
Yeah, I think we scored 32 points off their turnovers, which is a good start for us. The coaches have emphasized on just being able to have a lot of ball pressure, and also just for me, being able to guard in the perimeter in case my guard gets caught up on a screen. I think we did a good job of that tonight. So I think it just makes our job a lot easier when we have good guards that can really get over screens and fight through screens and apply a lot of pressure.
So I think this is a really good strength that we've seen from them, and something that would be huge for them if they can continue it in the regular season. Do you think this is something that they're going to kind of hang their hat on in the regular season?
1,000%. And I think that the way that their defense is set up in terms of what they're looking to accomplish, where they're looking to take things away from opponents and force them to operate in what they consider organized chaos, I think they're able to get to that layer of their defense across multiple lineups. And that's where a defensive process really can weigh on an opponent, because if you're grabbing all of the rebounds like Angel and Camila do, if they're both healthy, they'll be top 5 in rebounds total this season, both. If you're stamping stops and you're grabbing extra opportunities on the offensive end, and then defensively you're forcing turnovers, and you're also getting to the free throw line equally, if not more than your opponents, those margins allow for you to take more shots on goal and have more time with the ball in your hands on offense and spend a little bit less time on defense than your opponents. And because of that, that puts you in position to have a formula for success that you can sustain. And we saw a whole lot of that in these first 2 games. And we actually talked to Tyler Marsh about how aggressive they've been defensively as well, and how he's seen that kind of play out over these first couple of preseason games. So here's Tyler Marsh speaking to specifically that.
I thought it was good. I think that, with the mobility of our post players, they have the ability to be up to touch and then to retreat when their post players are rolling to the rim. And so, this all goes into our physicality and what we want our on ball pressure to be. But I thought they did a decent job tonight.
Yeah, so Tyler Marsh there, talking about that ball pressure and what he's seeing from them on the defensive end. Like I mentioned, we've seen the same starting lineup in the first 2 games. Do you think that he's going to kind of switch that up as we go through preseason, just get a couple more looks at different things?
I think he's going to stick with that one for quite some time, just because, for one, the production's been there, but also in terms of building chemistry, you want players to get a certain rhythm in specific lineups if that's going to be the way that you're operating. So I think he would rather like to keep that lineup intact and then have the reserve units that he's been using, particularly that first unit of reserve players, spending more time on the court together to continue to, again, just chop away at the chemistry building process, and then until it gets to a sustained level. But again, like we talked about, embarrassment of riches, you could swap players in and out, and you could see no slippage from either of those lineups because he has just so much optionality while not having to shift the style of play that they want to play to.
Yeah, speaking of those reserves, we've seen Haley Van Lith get more bench minutes than most of the vets on the bench, which I'm surprised by. I thought we were going to see her in much more limited minutes than we have. And then we've also seen Rebecca Allen be pretty quiet in these first 2 preseason games. Obviously, again, it's preseason. Can't put a ton of weight on it, but still, what have your first impressions of those reserve players been?
Michaela Onyewere is a starting caliber wing. We all knew that. We spoke to that at great lengths, and we spoke to the punch that their optionality has, to where you can have Michaela respectively on the bench, and that not be an indictment against her, because you have so many pieces that just fit well and can play to specific styles of play. So start with Michaela, the versatility she brings, the athleticism, her activities ramped up. She's been knocking down threes above the break from one pass away, getting in drives, getting into screening and rolling, playing the dunker spot a little bit. She's been really good, really active, no different than she was in that latter end of last season. And obviously you mentioned Rebecca Allen. I think that it's just a little bit hard to find a role for Rebecca Allen in terms of where she's going to be comfortable right now, just because there's so much newness. It's going to take a little bit of time for her to understand where her shots are coming from, the shots they need her to take. But the defensive end of the floor has not been, it hasn't been bad for her in any capacity. And I think that's where she's going to hang her hat most in her respective role to make this team work. And then obviously with Haley Van Lith before anybody else, I mean, what more can you say? She's come in, and every opportunity she's been given, she's made the absolute most of it. Tons of pressure on the rim, tons of pressure on the ball when she's guarding on defense. The activity and communication has been there. She's just a fireball. She's Haley Van Lith, like we talked about in our last episode. And that spark and dynamic was clearly on display yesterday, her first time in front of the Wintrust crowd. And like we talked about in our last episode, she's getting them engaged. The fans are on edge when they're watching her play. She's going into the in and out, and then the pull-up 3 to take the lead late in the game. She's Haley Van Lith. There's no better way to kind of encapsulate that. And I think that she sets the tone for the reserve unit in the way that a point guard is supposed to. And that picking up of the baton off of everything Courtney Vandersloot does with the starting unit is going to make for 2 units that the Sky can rely on in a viable manner.
Yeah, that nickname you made for her before preseason even started, I think is holding true there. Haley Van Lit. Yeah, I think we saw Courtney Vandersloot kind of coaching her up too before she went back in the game last night, which is really cool to see just how she's learning from Courtney and how her game can grow from playing under somebody like Courtney Vandersloot, who is obviously the assist queen and, just has such a strong game and has had an incredible career in the WNBA. And also I think this is really speaking to how much trust Tyler Marsh has in her, seeing how many minutes she's getting. Again, it's preseason. We have to throw that qualifier out there. But still, this is a lot of minutes for a rookie, especially, ahead of those vets that are on the team. So it seems like Tyler Marsh really likes what he's seeing from Haley. Everybody in the chat, hit the like button for me, please, as we transition to projections, predictions for this upcoming regular season. Like I said, just under 10 days away. Steven, let's start with the final record here, win-losses. I'm going to throw a couple projections at you, and then we can get into predictions. ESPN is projecting 18-26 with a 30.9% chance to make the playoffs. Sports Illustrated is setting the line at 19.5 wins. Most of the sports books that I looked at, 19.5 wins is about the line. What are you feeling in terms of a win total?
Well, over on the win total, this team is going to be in the playoffs. I think they get as high as 6, maybe 5 if they get out the gates to a hot start. That's probably going to be more important than anything else right there, just getting off to a hot start. And they'll be firmly in the playoff race. So I would say if they said they're at like 19, how many wins you said? 19?
19.5 is the current line, yeah.
I would put them at like 23, 22.
Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling 21, so we're close there. I said it before the season, and people are still in my Twitter mentions talking about how I said the Sky would not make the playoffs. I don't think we have to revisit it, but I'm going to stand on business with that one. I will be so happy if I'm wrong. Like, genuinely, I will be happy. What you
said when you made the prediction too. You say you would love nothing more than to be wrong about that.
Oh yeah, I would be so happy. Yeah, I want to clarify. Like, I will be happy if I'm wrong. But yeah, I'll stand on business with that one because I know a lot of people are still talking about that, not only in my comments but in our team account comments. Individual player performance. Let's get to this as well. Mm-hmm. Angel Reese, 13.6 points per game last season. Will she average more or less this season?
I think she averages more. I think she gets closer to 15, and the rebounds will stay around the same.
Okay. I am with you on that. I think more points per game. I'm going to go less on rebounds, though. My reasoning is that as a rookie, we knew that, she was going to be strong rebounding, but I don't think we knew she was going to be just as strong as she is. So I think you're going to see a lot more teams boxing out, specifically looking for her underneath the basket and knowing exactly where she's going to be and looking to stop her on that end, because obviously that's something that's so big for her game. Courtney Vandersloot, 4.8 assists last season. We thinking more or less?
A whole lot more than that. Her role shift, the fit with the CHGO Sky, the way she's going to be relied upon, the usage, all of those things are going to go significantly up from what her role with the New York Liberty was, albeit in a championship winning fashion, just in a different capacity with the Sky this season. I think she gets closer to probably 7 or 8. I don't think they're going to rely on her to play as much pick and roll as they did in previous renditions of the CHGO Sky, just because they have Ariel Atkins, who did a lot of initiating of offense last night, and Kia Nurse being able to do the same. But also playing through Angel and Camila a little bit more, the usage is going to be a little bit closer to even than it typically would be. And I think that because of that, she might not necessarily lead the league in assists, which we know she's more than capable of, but she'll be in the elite ranks in terms of assist percentage.
I agree. I think we're going to see her role expand. Obviously, she didn't have the role that she's used to having with the Liberty last season. That's part of the reason that she came back to the Sky. So I see more minutes, a larger role, more assists. Unfortunately, that also means more turnovers. That's just the reality of a guard that plays as aggressively as Courtney Vandersloot does. But absolutely more assists for her. And I think she also just has more weapons than she did coming off of the bench with the Liberty. The Liberty are a super strong team. They're a deep team. But when you're playing in a starting lineup with players like Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, you have so many more opportunities to pick up those assists. So I think you're going to see Courtney Vandersloot maybe not return to exactly the player that she was last time she was with the Chicago Sky, just because she's an older player. But getting somewhere near that level, getting back to looking much more like herself. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that because she's an incredibly entertaining player to watch when she's looking like that.
Yep, and maybe her most impactful dynamic on the team was going to come in the form of floor generalship in terms of controlling floor of the game, also the leadership part with Angel and Camila, but also obviously and even more so potentially with Haley Van Lith.
Yeah, I agree with that. We like to say points guardsmanship on the Bull Show, and that is exactly what we're going to see out of Courtney. And yeah, that leadership role, I'm really interested to see. Camila Cardoso, 27.4 minutes per game last season, more or less in the new Tyler Marsh system.
I think she gets closer to that 30-minute mark. But I'm curious if that happens earlier or later in the season because she does have Elizabeth Williams that's healthy this season, which we haven't spoken about her yet. Mm-hmm. She's looked incredible. She's in great shape. She's moving great off of the knee injury as well. And they also have Maddie Westbeld as well, who we haven't spoken about yet. So I'm curious what the minute distribution will look like, but I think Camila at worst stays at that 27 mark.
Yeah, I think number one, obviously, we want to manifest a super healthy season for Camila Cardoso because we didn't get to see a full season of her last season. But I think if she's healthy and as strong as we know she can be, I think that 27 is her floor. Like, I think we're going to see much more of her. The Sky are super deep in terms of guards. We spoke about that before the preseason started. But aside from Elizabeth Williams, who's behind her, they're not super deep in the front court. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Camila, and I'm excited to see how she handles it. Like, I'm excited to see how her conditioning is coming off of that injury. That's going to be a really tough transition, and I hope that she has enough time to kind of ramp up and get to that point that she'll need to be at throughout the season. But I agree. I think 27 is going to be her floor, not her ceiling.
I think 27 and close to a double-double.
Oh, okay. Double-double.
Yeah. I think she's going to have that impact this season. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are you saying double-double for Angel and Camila?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's going to be very close to that, if not them both just barely hitting that. Obviously, the rebounding is going to be the toughest part because they're going to, not literally, but figuratively, there's only so many rebounds available. So all you can eat as far as who gets to them first. But needless to say, that works in favor of the Chicago Sky.
Yeah, I mean, they're a strong rebounding team. I think the whole league knows that. And that's definitely not going to change. And I mean, you know, the guards aren't scrubs as far as rebounding either. Like, Kia Nurse can get down there. Courtney Vandersloot is quick. Like, she can get down there as well and grab some. So, yeah, I think teams are going to have a really tough time rebounding against the Sky. All-Stars. Angel Reese was the Sky's lone All-Star last season as a rookie. How many are you predicting this season?
I think they have 2 as the floor. I have spoken at great lengths about Ariel Atkins. 24 players had as many shots, 24 players had over 800, 32 players had over 800 field goal attempts last season. As far as points per shot, she was 12th. So the efficiency, the impact, and the type of shots that she's taking, when she gets into her scoring rhythm, which she hasn't taken as many shots as they would like for her to yet, when she gets to that point, she's going to be in that all-star conversation again. And because of the Chicago Sky's record that I'm expecting them to have, I think they have 2, and I think that Ariel Atkins is that second all-star.
I am 1,000% with you. I think it's 2, and I think Ariel Atkins is going to surprise a ton of people this season.
But she should not be surprising anybody with her being what she is, because she's been it for 7+ years now. Like, that speaks to a whole nother thing, but you are correct. Yeah, she's going to surprise a lot of people.
I think because she was in Washington. Like, I think that's the only reason that she's going to surprise people is because she was in Washington. Like, we know what an incredible player she is, but you know, if you're not deep in the W, you might not know that because you're not watching those Washington games. But I think we're going to see such a resurgence from Ariel Atkins on the Chicago Sky. Not only because she has just more weapons around her, but also because she can really dig deep on defense. We just talked about how she can kind of insulate Courtney Vandersloot. She's going to have her hands in the passing lanes. She's going to be able to get those steals, take that all the way down the court, keep it for herself, and score. And I am just so excited to see it. And I just think that she is going to have so much more space to operate in the Chicago Sky offense. And she's going to be huge this season. I'm so pumped to see it. I think she's absolutely going to be an all-star this season. And I'm glad you agree on that because I thought I might be a little bit crazy. So I'm glad you said it first. So, yeah.
Nah, you are not crazy in any capacity. That's 100% where I'm at with it too.
Yeah. Somebody that we haven't really touched on much, we wanted to get to her in our draft recap show, and we just ran out of time. Maddie Westbeld, I know you have some thoughts. She's looked pretty good through these first 2 preseason games. She's gotten quite a bit of minutes, especially for a second-round pick. So I'm curious what your impressions have been of Maddie Westbeld through 2 preseason games.
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversations around Maddie stem from her ability to shoot as a front court player, to be able to space and play with any of the other front court players for the Sky, whether she's with E-Will, whether she's with Angel, or she's with Camilla. Her ability to just be connective and keep things afloat, create new advantage, or play within an advantage that's been created from others. There's just such a connective dynamic about that really helps to keep lineups afloat and keep a style of play to certain units as well. She's great with that. She has an extremely, extremely high IQ and great feel for the game. And the thing that I got a chance to talk to her about in the post-draft availability for the Sky rookies was her ability to screen, because Notre Dame is known for their pick and roll, known for having great guards, but you don't get to the dynamic guard play that they are known for without having bigs that understand screening and all of the intricacies of that. So I asked her about screening and the art of that, and here's what she had to say.
That's a great question. I think there's an art in setting screens. There's an art in, the level that you're at and your ability to get off the screens quickly. Because, ultimately you're setting a screen for the person coming off of it, but also setting yourself up to be open. And so it's definitely an art. And working on your feet, working on, being available and ready to catch the ball, ready to shoot and attack as quick as you can off the ball screen. And having point guards in Olivia and Hannah, who, they both play at a very different pace coming off ball screens. Hannah is very quick, very kind of immediate in her attack mode. And then Liv is kind of, she has different levels to it. And so being able to play with such versatile point guards, such dynamic speeds, I think it'll be really good for me to just be able to be dynamic coming off the ball screen.
Yeah, so that first of all, she's very articulate with her words and painting pictures for people to understand what she's speaking to. And we've seen it play out from that IQ and her being able to articulate the way she's processing it with Haley Van Lith in particular. There's a play from their first game against the Brazilian national team where Haley gets in a little bit of trouble with her dribble. And in seasons past where she might have to retreat dribble and then there's no advantage created, Maddie presents herself, Haley just pitches it to her and then follows her pass to Maddie. And now all of a sudden there's new pace created, which is now an advantage for Haley to be going downhill to her strong hand. She comes off of the handoff from Maddie. She ends up turning the corner and gets into an and one off the glass. And that just speaks to Maddie's connective ability, again, making something out of nothing, where there would have been no advantage created and it would have been kind of predictable for what would happen next for the Sky, isolation, pick and roll. She creates something new and then there's new advantage and the Sky end up getting points out of that. And it was at a crucial point in the game as well. So I think that's just one example of the IQ that she has. And I think she's going to have a great pick and roll type of synergy with Haley Van Lith, a guard that loves to get downhill and get in the paint, with a big that can play in the short roll or can pop. That's exactly what you want. And the Sky are getting that, mind you, out of their second unit. That's not even their first unit. So that speaks to the embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, I think Maddie's going to be an intangibles kind of player. 5 points combined through these first 2 preseason games. And I think you look at those stat lines and you're like, like what did she really add? But you have to actually watch what she's doing, especially like you said with Haley Van Lith. I think that's going to be that pick and roll duo has a lot of potential. She's an intangibles kind of player. She's always in the right place at the right time. She's not somebody who you have to worry about, causing you a lot of turnovers. She's not somebody that is going to be picking up, stupid fouls. Like, she's a smart player. And she's just that absolute, like, intangibles, always knows exactly where she's supposed to be kind of player. It's interesting to hear you talk about her because I think you guys talk about the game in a very similar way, just the way that I hear her talk in, post-game availability. I look forward to hearing you guys kind of nerd out together in those post-game availabilities throughout the season. I think that's going to be fun. Maddie is definitely an intangibles kind of player.
For sure. And last quick thing I'll throw at on Maddie in particular, she also makes quick decisions. And when you have so many talents around that you don't have to be so specific on one person having the ball, if you can just keep it moving, if something doesn't work, instead of trying to figure out how to make that work in a situation where it's bleeding away the shot clock, she'll just get it to someone else or get it across the court, and that'll create a new rotation, and that creates new advantage. That's all that Tyler Marsh is going to want from her, whether she's making – there's no wrong decision you can make if you make it quick, put it like that. And she's always making those quick decisions, and because of that, she can never be a negative to the offensive side of the court at all. And I think that her IQ on defense as well is something that's ahead of the rookie curve too. Yeah,
I think she's going to be a really strong player for this guy off the bench this season. You can't stat watch her, that's for sure. You have to see her impact on the court. That's an eye test kind of player. We're running out of time here. Anything else before we let all these fine folks go?
Yeah, last thing for me is Elizabeth Williams. I think she kind of got lost in the shuffle after she got hurt so early last season. It was very unfortunate because I feel like there was a lot that they could have probably won 2 or 3 more games if they had Elizabeth's leadership and defensive acumen and ability in the lineup. But her being back, she's knocking down those little short pull-ups. She's playing with so much confidence. And I think that her having the shared IQ part that I spoke to with Ariel and Kia, Elizabeth shares that with all of the vets on the roster. And I think that's something that's really going to help. Like, how many teams across the W can you say have someone that could potentially be in a defensive player of the year race and certainly will be there at some point in Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso? And then you also come into the first big off the bench, and it's Elizabeth Williams. That, like, no one has that type of dynamic where you have 3, in terms of if they're at the peak of their powers, you have 3 players that could be defensive player of the year type of players if they were in that role to be that type of player. And I think that them having that is going to be something that helps to protect the rim in a way that most teams can't. And that, in addition to obviously her leadership part with the 2 second-year front court players and Angel and Camila, it's going to really help to expedite their learning curve. They don't have – like, they're not novices in any capacity, but just her being able to be in their ear over the course of games as a – like kind of like a mentor in a sense is going to be invaluable in terms of the space that it provides them in value. So I'm looking forward to that and just all of those dynamics playing out. But Elizabeth Williams is going to be key for the Chicago Sky this season.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how she comes back in the regular season. We haven't seen like super strong breakout performances from her in preseason, but she also hasn't been a liability in preseason. Like, she's been solid. And I'm interested to see her kind of take on that Courtney Vandersloot-ish role of, being a mentor to these players. And, I want to hear her voice on the bench. I want to hear what she's saying to Angel and Camila.
I want to hear her mic'd up. I would love to hear her mic'd up.
Oh, yeah. There's
she
a lot of players.
So much, whether she's on the bench and she's talking to the players on the court or the other players on the bench. But when she's on the court, especially, the way that she's barking out commands and the way that she problem solves from behind the defense in a way that keeps them out of trouble, she's special. E. Will is a special talent, and yeah, the Sky are very lucky to have her.
Yeah. I mean, that speaks again to like the intangibles that we talked about with Maddie. It's like that's something that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but that's something that's so important. My last thing, I'll make it super quick because we got to get out of here. Tyler Marsh, you need to make these players make their free throws. We need to be running suicides in practice. This is insane. Why are players stepping up to the line and missing both free throws? That's crazy. I know it's preseason. This can't continue in the regular season. I don't want to see it. We need to fix this. I don't know what you need to do. I'm not a coach, but you need to do it. That's crazy. I'm sick of it. We're not doing it again. That's my last thing. Shout out to other Steven for producing for us today. We got to let him go so we can get to Bears. Shout out to Steven in Phoenix. Appreciate you as always. We will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for joining. Hit the like button on your way out.
We all silly like the mayor.